have read a few books about working conditions, about musicians' lives, and in those books, they described the working conditions, especially, you know, in the 40s and 50s. I read a book about Billie Holiday, and she talked about some of the conditions that they had to go through when they went down, especially when they went down south. Because at that time, as you know, I mean, you may not know, but racism was pretty rampant. I mean, you know, there was the Jim Crow laws where you couldn't stay at regular hotels. You had to find hotels or houses in the black community to stay at. You know, you could not stay at regular hotels because people didn't see you as, you know, they didn't see you as equal people, you know, back in that, during that time. And some of that goes on now. A lot of that goes on now. So I remember reading a book about Nat King Cole, you know, and what happened was with him was, so he was a very popular singer, and he went down south, and black people couldn't even come to the concert, but the white girls were there, and they were, you know, because his voice was velvety, so they were clapping and cooing, and the establishment didn't like that, so they ended up beating him up, and he vowed never to go back down south again, you know, because of that, you know. But I've read books about Mingus, Charles Mingus, John Coltrane, and James Baldwin. My dad was a reader. My dad was a civil rights kind of guy, so he did a lot of books were in the house when I was, especially when I was in high school, because that was around the 70s, starting from the 60s to the 70s. So Carter G. Woodson, I read, and I can't remember. Oh, The Miseducation of a Negro, which really was the book that kind of got my attention on what I was being shown, what I was perceiving, especially watching television and stuff, you know, because prior to that, I thought that's who I was supposed to be like. I was supposed to emulate those folks, like, you know, and then that gave me a sense of who I was, and of liking myself as a black man, you know. Prior to that, I didn't know, you know. I thought I was supposed to be like these people I saw on television. As far as schools using black material now, most of the jazz schools are using black material, at least in music, you know. Georgia State here is doing it. I mean, I can name a few. Berkeley College of Music. I mean, now they've even got a gospel division, which when I went, they didn't have that. But I think the Western societies is acknowledging the presence of the black culture in the music, you know, because a lot of it is emulated by other than black folks, you know. But it was a very strong tradition, you know, very, very strong. Berkeley had it, like I said. Florida A&M, Florida State was beginning to get it. So pretty much in any school, especially as far as jazz is concerned, you're gonna have the study of black music. The first black book, there were two books that I got when I was in college that really enlightened me. Ray Brown's Bassline book really taught me some things about just not playing just straight, but how to put a rhythmical dance onto music, you know. And that, because of, again, my mom's dancing, that drew me in, you know. David Baker also had another book, and he was a trombone player, but he had gotten in an accident, so he ended up doing cello. but he wrote this book about bebop lines. And at the time when I got to school, you know, I knew what bebop was, but how to approach that, I had no clue. And his book gave me a lot of insight on what that was, how to approach it, how to refine it, you know. And so I grew a lot from that experience. Um, I don't know if any schools or universities created by black folks in the United States. Now there are historically black universities, and most of those schools were created by um, after the Civil War by like the Quakers or benevolent, um, not philanthropists, but what do you call them when they go and but they were spreading their religion. So, you know, they were spreading their brand of religion. I forgot the name of that. But yeah, philanthropists. Um, but the key to that was uh, they kind of decided the curriculum. So it was geared toward what they thought was important for you, you know. Was that good or bad? I don't know. I think if it was me, I would have done it differently, but I didn't. But again, you know, there's so much black music in school, in the schools, especially in universities. You know, you probably can't. If a jazz school, you cannot um, even have one without the mentioning or the using of black music because it was so influential. From Charlie Parker, you know, Dizzy Gillespie, you know, John Coltrane, Marcellus, you know, Joe Henderson. So. I have gone to the Western. I was in the Navy band, so I went to Berklee School of Music. I got out, and this is a funny story. Branford Marcellus and I were in school together. So I had gotten out, and I came back to my hometown because near where I am is this place called Hilton Head, and it's a resort town. So one of the guys that taught me um, called me, asked me did I want to do, you know, a gig down there. So I went down there to do that. Uh, he was a nice guy, and I'm ever indebted for him for teaching me what he did, because he was actually probably the most influential guy when I was young to lean in the jazz direction. However, he didn't pay me. So I played for 6 months, man, and I got really frustrated. You know, because I looked up to him as my, you know, musical icon. And at that same time, Branford had called me and said, listen, I'd heard of Winton. Actually, I played with Winton while I was at Berklee before I left. And said Brent Winton was going to form a band in October. So he called me in May. I hadn't heard from him. I hadn't heard anything yet. So in September, I decided to join the military band, you know, the Navy band. In November, I got the call from, we get ready to form this group, you know, which was the group with Kenny Kirkland and Jeff Watts and Branford and Winton. And if I had gone, you know, if I'd been around for that, that would have been history. But, you know, it is what it is. That didn't happen, so. So while in the Navy band, I was able we would go to travel every country in South America as goodwill ambassadors, and then we would go to the coast of West Africa. The problem, so we stayed in South America for 5 months and stayed in West Africa for only a month. And it was probably one of the greatest, the greatest traveling experiences for me, you know, because I felt like home. Number one, I felt like I was home. I felt like, you know, grounded there. Saw some great music. Cameroon. We went to Cameroon. We went to Lomé, Togo. We went to Dakar, Senegal. Went to Abidjan, Ivory Coast. Went to what's near Liberia? Right up from Liberia. Sierra Leone. Yeah, Sierra Leone. Um, and it, it it was great. I mean, for me, it was great. You know, when I was in Brazil as well. That's the first time I really saw a heavy African influence on the music. You know what I mean? Like there was nobody denying that. You know, the rhythms and the call and response that I heard there, I heard it in church, but I could identify with where it came from, and that put two and two together. So this must be a cultural thing, you know. So that was very enlightening to me, very enlightening. So I would like to go back as a more mature guy, you know, and really spend some time um, in some of the countries in Africa. Yeah, I really would. I love the music, like I said, Senegal. Cameroon, man, some of the bass players that I saw there at that time, they, they were, you know, by that time I was in competitive music, you know, and there was no way I could even carry that case, you know, they were so good. So yeah. I don't have a whole lot of, I don't know a whole lot about the African culture other than what I saw and the people that I were introduced to and what they shared with me. You know, this is why if I went back, I would really want to spend like a year just going around to different countries, because I need to know that. I need, you know, I'm taught history of Europe. I respect that. That's not where my roots are. I want to know what, you know, because what that told me in school, there was nothing great that came from Africa, you know, because there was nothing that, you know, until I got old enough. And then recently, Dr. Gates did this special on PBS and showed some of the great, not only civilizations, but the great men, the great, I won't say tribes, but great, I don't know, for lack of better words, great countries that, you know, were there, you know, but a lot of history. I mean, if you think about it, this is greatest civilization. So this is something that I want to do when before I die.